Okay, so let me, sorry guys, I really have tons of stuff pulled up here. Okay, I'm gonna pull up the relevant activity, or if anyone has it and wants to start like reading.
Somebody could screen share as well. That might help.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, let me try and do that. The discussion questions, right, on the assignment?
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
It's taking forever to load, so.
I'm finding it. I had it and now it's not there, so let me just go back.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Let me just, how do I screen share?
So,
Screen share.
sorry guys, Island is not cool.
Okay.
I think Brenda's pulling up. There you go.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Sorry guys, Island is not.
No, you're good. So this is the group discussion agenda, right? Is this the part we just need to discuss?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just these three, okay. And you guys can see, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right.
I think I've only ever shared once, so tell me if it's not good.
You have to be the last one talking, though, for us to keep seeing it.
So,
you know, if you're on your computer, just click on my square, and you can just continue to see my screen.
But your screen is changing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I'm not gonna. So you won't see my cute face. I'll just show you my. I'll just show you my screen. So So I'll just leave it there.
Okay.
So the first part of this, briefly discuss a quick review of the model. So summarize how the health belief model works. Would anyone want to start that off? I can.
Oh.
I've already done the application assignment. So
good girl.
So let me just see what I wrote here. Okay. Okay, so basically the health belief model, from what I learned this week, was that it's just a model that basically just identifies like possible reasons why the target population thinks the way that they do. And like there's 6 different constructs, and it also kind of lists like perceived susceptibility and everything. It kind of just shows how basically like how a specific target population, how much at risk they are, if that makes sense. So that's what I got from this week's health belief model.
Yeah, it was like, I feel like I understood it a little bit more clear when they started talking about, like, when they described it in a way of like, these are the reasons why they would have or lack motivation, if that makes sense. Like that made it make sense for me. Like if they think they're at risk, like obviously they might be slightly more motivated. If they don't think they are, then they wouldn't, you know? So I think that word motivation really helped me to understand like why people would or would not take advantage of kind of like looking into their health or changing their health behavior.
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like self-efficacy was a huge part of it.
Oh, yeah,
that
for sure.
People have to feel confident in their ability to accomplish the task at hand or to make a change,
and have
to actually take part in it.
I also think that it leads to the health educators to involve people into action. So perceptions and beliefs, I think, play an important role here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And
another thing, sorry, I was just going through everything. And it also, like, what I thought was really cool is that they kind of, some of the things that were talked about in this model was like just explaining the seriousness behind each, like behind like certain issues and whatnot. So it made me think like, you know, sometimes when my mom but I, like just in general, right? Like if you're trying to tell, like growing up for me, my mom would, I was kind of stubborn. So my mom would like tell me like, don't do that because this consequence and this and that and all those things and whatnot. And sometimes that was helpful, but most of the time it wasn't. It was like I had to have some sort of personal application to it, like in order for me to really understand the seriousness behind that, like behind why she was telling me I shouldn't do a certain thing. So I just thought that that was pretty cool that that kind of goes into creating different health models as well.
Definitely.
Mhm. Sorry, did you
That's
see
a
that
good
I
application.
posted the
Oh
the
yeah.
discussion points just so that I can? I feel like I want to feel a part of this group.
Perfect.
With what you were saying too, I don't know if you guys saw the PowerPoint that was provided. I thought it was really interesting as I was going through the PowerPoint, and they were listing out, like, for example, like if you set up a program like this, there you go, you've covered this and this and this construct, and then at the end they're like, but did it work? And then it ended up not being like a good example because there was such, I feel like, such emphasis on how you really need to know your target population. Like it's a very, like, you would think like it's a really simple type of model, and it is, you know, but unless you really are, you know, get to know your target population, you got to really make sure that it'll work for them specifically. Did anyone see the PowerPoint? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do I sound
I
crazy?
did about
Yeah.
the jazz or the blues
Yeah.
singers.
Yeah, the way they were like making it specific for that type of person, I felt like, oh, that makes so much sense. If I was that, you know, if I was a blues singer, or, you know, that would draw me in. But that first example you think is good enough, and then you realize, no, you really got to dig deeper because it would be much more effective if it really caters to the person you're trying to help.
My opinion is though that people always have their free agency, if you will, and some people have to just learn things on their own. Kind of like Gertrude said.
Totally.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything they want to add to just that thing?
No.
Okay.
No.
Alrighty, so the second part is discuss the process and how they relate to the stages of the model.
That part kind of confused me, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like as you go along through the model, is that what they mean by processes?
So on the PowerPoint,
Like the first one on the foundation, or the very last one?
it's titled PowerPoint. I don't know if this is the right PowerPoint. This is from last week, or if it's just called Chapter 7 and it is Chapter 8, but I think it's Chapter 8. It's linked on our readings for this week.
Oh, hold on.
It's titled Chapter 7 PowerPoint Lecture, but it has like some stages of the health belief model, just kind of in a step-by-step format.
Do you
Like
mind
with
screen sharing? Are
Yeah.
you able to screen share?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me just, and you can tell
I
me
feel
if this
like
is
I
a
probably, yeah, I probably saw. I'm just trying to make sense of, because I think there was 2 this week.
screen share.
I thought the PowerPoint they're referring to was about the blues singers.
Yeah, that's the more detailed one I saw today, but there was a really brief one at the beginning, I think.
Okay, is this sharing?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, so let me,
Oh,
it might be a different one.
no, I think that's the one I
Are
was
these the
looking at.
steps that it's referring to, or I have another PowerPoint that might be more of what she's looking for. These are just the constructs. But I also have let's see, let me share this other one.
Let's see. What were we-
In the reading, there was a chart
Mhm.
that kind of like, maybe I'm trying to see if maybe this is what they meant.
Do you guys see this?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is this what it is?
Here, oh yeah, see, yeah, I was gonna show the chart that was like that. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe it's, whoa, where'd you get that PowerPoint?
This question confuses me as well. It's not very clear. Well,
Yeah, I don't know, maybe instead of processes, they meant like the constructs, you know, because I'm like, the processes, I don't understand that.
Yeah, this is my best bet of what it's referring to.
That's what I thought too, just based on the way they worded it. So
And where was that at?
yeah, I didn't get that PowerPoint.
I think this PowerPoint is from chapter 7, actually. And it actually might be from my other class that I'm taking right now. That's the exact same
I don't think
information.
Yeah, I don't think we have that one in this class. I have that chart. But it's just from the reading, and it doesn't look quite like that. But
yeah, this is probably from I'm taking a class that goes right along with this.
okay.
And I get them mixed up. But but it's the same. We learned about the health belief model in this class this week too.
okay, yeah, maybe that's what she meant. So discuss the processes and how they relate to the stages of the model. Huh.
I'm just as confused as everyone else is. Maybe, what's the next question? So maybe we can just go through the different constructs. Is that kind of?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, if that's how we want to interpret it, I think that would work too. Because I'm confused. I don't know.
So these are here the constructs.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I'll go to cues to action. For me, that's like the aha moment where you finally come to yourself and say, yes, I need to do something. And maybe you already have a plan of what you need to do. But for me, the cues of the action is the aha moment. I'm going to do something.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And perceived susceptibility is someone's belief that they're going to get the disease, or that they're actually going to be affected by getting obese or things like that. They have to actually internalize the fact of them maybe being part of the situation, or else it doesn't matter to them. Like for me, I don't fear getting the Zika virus because I'm not in an area that has it. But if I were in like Sao Paulo, Brazil, then I would get the what is it called? The
vaccination.
Vaccination. Yeah, I would get that because I would feel more susceptible.
Perceived seriousness or severity, kind of. Okay, so this one I kind of had to keep on like explaining to myself because I couldn't like find a connection. But from what I figured out, it basically has to do with like someone I guess identifying the seriousness of an illness and then having that determine whether or not they receive like treatment or help for that certain illness.
Yeah.
Like, do you know how like this flu season has been so crazy? Like, I think it made me more alert about like, should I have gotten the flu shot? Should I have like taken that preventative measure or whatever? Because every other year I'm like, I don't care. It's not that serious.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of an example of that construct. Like I generally don't really think twice about it.
Yeah.
Well, not to get off topic, but it's only effective to a certain percentage if they guess the right strand.
That's why I never get it.
Yeah.
So I never get the flu shot.
But I guess it's worth that extra percent chance it'll help you.
Well, this year was scarier. So it just made me think. Whereas other years I'm like, meh, don't care because I don't feel like it's a serious thing. But
Yeah. That's a good example.
yeah. When we think about like perceived barriers, I don't know about you guys, like the first thing that comes to my mind, I feel like maybe it's just like the way I grew up. Like it's not my situation now, but I swear like we like never had health insurance. Like I just never wanted to go to the doctor because I was like, it's gonna be so expensive, you know? Like that was a huge barrier for me. I mean, maybe when we think barriers, something else comes to your mind, but that was like that's a big one for me. And I'm sure for a lot of people, like that's a huge barrier to have to deal with, you know, the cost of the health behavior.
Well, I have health insurance now, but I never want to pay the copayment. That's my barrier.
It's a good motivator, though. It is a good motivator. Because then it keeps you, you know, eating healthy, exercising, trying at least, instead of just running to the doctor when you feel a little bit ill.
Yeah, that's so true.
I think another perceived barrier sometimes can be like social issues as well, or like social things, like, you know, I don't know, for example, like someone's smoking cigarettes, like that example we had in the outcome page, but a little different, or not the outcome page, the foundation page, just like just peer pressure, you know, kind of like, oh, I can't stop smoking because if I stop smoking, then like my friends are no longer gonna hang out with me, they're no longer gonna think I'm cool, stuff like that. So I think
that's so true.
Social, I don't know, I feel like perceived barriers should have like a branch of like social barriers as well. But
I agree.
That's a good thought. That's right.
Our benefits.
perceived
I wrote
benefits.
something down about that.
Well, like back to the example of me getting a vaccination for the Zika virus. I don't want to go on vacation to Brazil and have to suffer through that virus and all the bad things that could come from it. So, and especially like if I were pregnant at the time or a child, to prevent anything bad from happening to me or to our unborn child, you know, weighing the barriers and benefits. In that case, the benefits would far outweigh the consequences that could take place because of the vaccination.
That's a good one.
I'm trying to find a thought I had about the perceived benefits, but it might take me a second. So someone else can go ahead. Sorry.
I think once you've experienced an illness or a disease or close to some of the, and then you see the benefits of the healthcare, that affects you, and then you can share those experiences with others. My example is I finally broke down and went to the chiropractor after waiting like 3 weeks. And so I was like, why did I wait? And so now, anytime I feel I need to go, I'll go.
Yeah.
I can't find what I wrote down.
I'm thinking, I can't really think of anything of that. I feel like you guys' examples are pretty good. Anything else?
I think my thought was similar to Samantha's. I think it talked to, I don't know, maybe somewhere in the book, or I might have gone off and like found videos about the health belief model and stuff. It talked about how benefits, I think you mentioned this, Samantha, about how like they have to obviously be greater than the cost. Does that make sense? I think that's what you're talking about. It just the
Yeah.
way they put it really made sense to me, but I can't find a way to put that thought. Sorry, guys, but it's so
Yeah.
true.
Well, because like with the flu, a lot of people don't get the flu vaccine because you have a chance of actually contracting the flu. Or you pay $15 and it doesn't do anything. You could still get
Yeah.
the flu.
Mhm.
But the benefits could be you're protected from the flu that could be awful. You could for babies or for old people, you could die. So like
That's insane.
I had our daughter vaccinated because she's so young, and I thought, you know, the positives outweigh the negatives, the benefits outweigh the consequences. So we chose to have her have it, and she hasn't had the flu and she hasn't had any symptoms. So I don't know if that's due to the vaccine or what, but it all turned out good.
Yeah, that makes sense. We do kind of make decisions that way. Cool.
Does anyone else have any other thoughts? No?
I don't.
Okay. So the third point is what kind of intervention centered on the processes move people through the stages?
I think there'd be all sorts of interventions, really. Like, I mean, the reading really stated a couple good ones. I think the breast cancer one I was looking into. I just have some personal experience with people in my family about that. So that was really, really interesting. But I really think that it could be it could be all sorts of stuff where you really want to change health behavior. Because it does have to do with like motivating people. It's almost like instilling in this like I don't want to say like a scare tactic, but you know, when you start telling people like this could be really serious, like you're pretty high risk, like it's almost kind of like when people perceive that they're like threatened by this like, you know, health issue, whatever it is they're doing, whether it be drugs or like breast cancer runs in your family or like, do you know what I mean? Like anything that really could affect them, I think it could just be all sorts of stuff.
Definitely.
I think also that it would be better if we use health communication strategies. So we use to inform and influence individuals' decisions, and also make something to influence their health status, and also to achieve target populations, to achieve the goals, and improve health promotion programs.
Definitely. In my other class is very similar to this. We have to actually create a health promotion program. And we found that the target population of elementary age kids in the state of Mississippi have the highest death rates for vehicle accidents.
Wow.
And a big reason for that is that they're not properly secured in either car seats or seatbelts. So the issue is they're not properly taught to wear seatbelts, don't wear seatbelts. Maybe they can't afford a proper car seat. But I can't remember what were we talking about again.
The type of interventions where you would use this kind of model. So like you're already saying like maybe like with the parents you would use this type of model, like your kids are at risk.
Yeah,
you know?
that's what I was going. So when you mentioned the fear tactic, a lot of states have gone to using the click it or ticket campaign, where if you are caught, not just the driver, but if any of the passengers are caught without wearing their seatbelts, the driver will get a ticket. So that motivates the driver to get the passengers to wear their seatbelt, which in turn saves lives. So it's kind of using the fear tactic, but it's smart because it saves lives, and it's worked. The proof is shown that rates have gone up dramatically since that campaign has started.
That's so true. No, that's a great example. I used to be that way, where it's like when I was like 10, I would never put my seatbelt on, and then all of a sudden my brother started being like, no, if you're going to be in the car with me, you have to have your seatbelt on, otherwise I'm not pulling out of the driveway, you know. But I do remember it like being like, I thought I'm going to get a ticket. I'm only 10. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I have to pay for that. So I started to be like more fearful of the consequences, and I myself have had that change. So that's a good example. I forgot about that one.
Thanks.
I honestly, that's great. Like with that, in that case, because I think there were specific like strategies, right? Like that they talked about. And the one that comes to mind is like the community mobilization strategy or something like that, where they like, where like an example of that would be like putting up flyers someplace or doing things like that. And I think like what you were mentioning about like the Click It or Ticket campaign, I guess you would call it. I feel like that another good thing would be like, so where I'm from on the city buses, we have a lot of different posters and stuff that say like, oh, don't smoke on the bus, all this stuff. And then it has like little statistics on the bottom, all these different things. And so I think that can be super beneficial, like posters and the Click It or Ticket campaign and like flyers and stuff like that. I think those are good strategies to getting those points. Yeah.
Definitely. Cool.
Yeah.
Was that everything?
I
think
so.
those were the main points.
Let me try
Just
to
have to discuss the tattoos now.
Oh yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
get
that
them.
was here. Let me screen share again because I'm right on my page already. So hey. And we're here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
So part 2 is we would want to talk about that scenario.
Underage youth get tattoos, either to rebel against parents or to be accepted by peers. Okay. Would anyone like to read this quote?
Sure, I'll read it.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, Josh. Did you want to read it?
No, I like hearing your voice.
Okay. Peer and parental influences compete and often conflict. As youth approach early adulthood, they decide upon ways they wish to present themselves to others and count the costs of doing so by gauging the reactions they get. Attendant to this process are psychosocial risks and rewards. For example, the choice between acceptance by peers and rejection by parents and other authority figures factors into the decision-making process for behavior in general. We imagine this to be more consequential when individuals contemplating getting something permanent as a tattoo.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm still in my meeting.
Hold on. So are we going to read this
Macy
article? Should we read that link? Is that what you're needing to do?
Stelly's not there. Thank you.
Oh, it's 24 pages. I don't think so.
I don't think we're supposed to read this. I think what it says is the discussion point. What is the behavior behind tattooing?
Everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think peer pressure. Like you were saying, was it Gertrude? You were talking about social barriers. Is that what you mentioned? I mean, it's maybe like the opposite. It's like why you would do something as opposed to why you would stop doing something, but kind of that same sort of social pressure.
I think also the relationship between the early adulthood and their decisions, including the ways they wish to present themselves to others. I think also it includes identity formation. They are discovering who they are, or maybe they are having rebellious behavior.
Yeah.
I think it could be many factors.
Yeah, totally.
Hi, Sister Coped here. Sorry.
Oh.
I just got home from Young Women.
Hi.
So, sorry.
Hi.
So, like, you guys in that situation, obviously, I assume we're all LDS, and we don't personally believe in getting tattoos. Like the question said, how would you set that aside? Like how, because I feel like I struggle with that. How do you not judge the person based on their choices, but still address it, but not influencing them by your personal opinion, just by the facts of like, this can be bad for you. Do you guys have any idea?
Well, in a ways, you can't separate the two, in my opinion, because either you think getting a tattoo is wrong, or you think it's okay, and your parents thought that way. And it seems, to me, it seems like the younger generation feels like it's okay to get a tattoo in the church or out of the church, even.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Definitely.
Yeah.
to
See,
me, it's hard to separate your beliefs and healthcare.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that. But you can't express to someone in a business setting. I personally, through my religion, believe that you shouldn't get tattoos. Like you can't go around saying
Yeah,
that.
totally.
Right.
I think in that case, that's where you'll try. Like, I don't know. Sometimes it's really interesting, but I feel like a lot of the things that we're advised not to do have some, like, maybe we don't see it now, but have some sort of like health risk to them. So I feel like with tattoos, you could like go on explaining like, oh, if the tattoo is not, or not if the tattoo, wow, if the needle isn't clean, like, you know,
Mhm.
looking up like risks of HIV or like all these other things. And I think that is something that kind of opens people's eyes, because if you're telling someone like, don't get tattoos because it's bad, like we don't believe in it,
Mhm.
a lot, especially nowadays, I feel like a lot of people get offended or they just don't want to hear the opinions of others. And so, but once you include like health risks and stuff like that, that's when I feel like more people start to be more like, when they start to listen to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
Yeah.
that is something that you include.
Yeah, I agree with your thoughts, Gertrude, and I think that's obviously a big part of this model is when we talk about health risks and stuff. And I do think that as a health educator, you do want to be a little bit matter of fact. Like if I start to bring my beliefs into it, why would my target population care about what I think? Do you know what I mean? If it becomes about my beliefs, then I'm thinking like I think and not like they would think. So how could I really help, you know? So in this case, I do think that, like, I mean, I agree to some extent with you, Josh, that it's hard to kind of like separate the two because it's just who we are, you know, our beliefs. It's just kind of, we carry them with us all the time. But I do think that you would reach them, I think, better if you kind of stood in their position as much as possible. So
Yeah.
if you just stayed very matter of factly, like obviously anything that you would do as a health educator would be for the health benefits of your target population. You're not trying to like dig them deeper into a hole. You're trying to help them. So maybe emphasizing like the benefits of whatever it is that you're promoting. Like you said, there's, I'm sure, a lot of benefits that's not getting a tattoo. And plus at that age, and it talked about in that quote, it's so permanent. Like you don't really know that you want to commit to this yet, you know? Maybe sticking to stuff that would ring a bell for them, not so much for us.
Yeah.
Well, my mom told me I wasn't allowed to get a CTR tattoo.
Good on your mom.
Yeah. And Brenda, I think it goes back to what you were saying at the beginning of our meeting, that your mom would always have to say, what made it come through to you is that she would have to give you a reason why, not just don't do this, that's bad, but she had to say, don't do this because it could lead to you getting hurt. It could lead to you, you know, not being happy. So with the situation of tattoos, like parents honestly really have to step in. I mean, like as health educators, we play a huge role, but I think health educators need to focus on teaching the parents, the role models, how to affect their children because they see their kids the most. Hopefully they're able to affect and influence their kids like no one else, because kids look up to their parents like no one else. And you know, I could go off for hours on this, just like with the whole Florida shooting. You know, if that child had parents that loved him and taught him that he was worth happened, and all situations, almost all are all rooted back in into the parents' responsibility. So I think as health educators, we'll see in the future that for the role of parents in the choices that children are making, that it's really a lot falls on the parents' responsibility, on their heads.
Yeah, I agree with you, Samantha. I think parents have a big influence on children, and also it could be a big motivation for them. So also it could increase the ability to perform a behavior and then a positive change in children.
Absolutely. With this specific topic too, I'm sure there's laws with you can't just go and get a tattoo professionally and adequately done when you're not an adult.
Just what everyone's saying just seems like, well, we all know, like, it's just certain things that work for each target population, and there's certain things that don't work for each target population. Because like Josh, what you were saying about like, you know, separating beliefs and all these things, if we were talking to like LDS youth, then telling them, oh, the prophet, you know, it's just what the prophet said, you know, all those things, then that for them, I mean, of course, there are some people who need to like figure it out on their own, but for most youth that are LDS, like that works for them, you know, saying like, oh, it's something that we've been taught by the prophets and everything like that.
Right. Obviously, you can't bring out your specific beliefs as a health educator, which I'm not. So I really don't mind sticking my foot in my mouth. But but you're always going to come back to your beliefs.
Yeah.
Just like the parents, you know, it goes right to the family proclamation. Granted, you can't push the family proclamation at the doctor's office, but.
So then I just have a question. This is just a random question, but I just want to hear you guys' thoughts. So then how do you find that balance? Like how do you know when you have kind of like overstepped that line between your beliefs and like basically just helping the target population, like, I don't know, assessing their needs without your beliefs, if that makes sense?
I think that's like in the very early stages of whatever program you're planning. I mean, what are your goals? What are you wanting to get out of this program, this intervention? And if they're way too intertwined with like spiritually, I want to uplift people, you know, then maybe you got to go and readdress like things that are just going to be more beneficial for your target population and not for what you would want. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe those are maybe my thoughts, like in the very initial process, I think.
For like this, we're pushing to educate kids on the dangers of tattoos. We're not pushing the family proclamation, even though they can go hand in hand, having a strong family. And I, at work, know people that were giving themselves tattoos as teenagers. They weren't going to a tat parlor. They were just doing it themselves. So you got to find ways to reach them and their parents.
Yeah.
I also think that it could be important to understand outcomes and identify barriers, and then guide target population to overcome obstacles and finally move to action.
Yeah. Definitely. I think everything to the Lord is, though we don't bear our testimony I bear my testimony to you, but in certain situations, the Spirit will lead and guide the program, guide whatever we're addressing. So we really, like, no matter what career we're in, the Spirit does guide us because God is by our side in our actions. So absolutely. I think honestly, you know, when you overstep those bounds, when you feel like you're acting like out of fear or out of anger or out of gifts that are not of the Spirit. So you just have to be in tune and keep those feelings in check.
I agree. Totally.
Great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Let me see if there was another point of discussion. I think that might have been it. I think we just, if no one else has anything, we're just going to look at the application assignment.
Okay, yeah, the part 3.
Go in the bathroom and think about what happened.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, you're okay. Are we all ready to look at the application assignment prep then? Okay, let's. I'm assuming it's just the next one over. It doesn't want to work. Oh, here we go. Nope, that's our discussion board. Nope. Sorry, guys.
The other one.
One away, I think. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Can everyone see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, now that I lost the other one, I think were we just supposed to see what it was going to be about? Or Gertrude, you said you already got started on it?
So it says for us on the, just read the instructions and then go through some of it, I guess. Let me see. I'm still.
I thought this was assignment we did on our own after our meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
just wanted to look at it.
I guess
Okay.
if anyone has any like questions about anything, because then we can just read the instructions, and then if anyone has any questions about anything, then we can answer them, and then
Okay.
And then I guess that's it.
Yeah, and then we just discuss who's going to be the leader next week. I'm sorry, did you still need me to share that?
No,
No, you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Okay. Okay, so I can read the instructions then.
Okay.
Okay.
So I think we'd go through and kind of set up the framework kind of like they did with the Blues Singers.
Okay. Okay, cool. And we probably already discussed a lot of this time today.
Yeah, the different
discussion.
constructs.
Okay, that's awesome.
And
Our sister Cofield can tell us what to do.
Yeah, she's here.
She's here.
Sounds like you guys talked a lot about it.
Okay. Awesome.
So we're just applying what we've discussed to that specific topic.
Yep. So your population is, the youth wanting to get tattoos. And the health issue is them want the tattoos. And first question, just give me an overview of the model itself. Talk about the constructs. Second question is filling in the table. Intervention is where you'll put, like, whether it's a health education strategy, behavior modification, social activities, environmental change strategy. That's basically all you have to put in that column there. And then in the description, you give me like specifically what you would do for an intervention. So I gave an example in the announcements. I did a little video. So like if you're going to deal with peer pressure, have them like role play in like a classroom setting, dealing with, ways to deal with peer pressure, saying no or deflecting, going and finding something else to do with their peers. And then the expected impact would be that, they develop greater self-efficacy, greater confidence in themselves to resist negative peer pressure.
So that would be the expected impact, like self-efficacy or would it
greater self-efficacy in like negative peer pressure situations, so that they could say no or find something else to do with their friends than get tattoos or.
Okay.
So I have a question on the in the intervention boxes. We should base our interventions on the table we completed in the lesson 3, or just related them with the constructs of the model.
All you have to do in the intervention column is look at that intervention table from lesson 3. And
Okay.
there's 8 different types. Like I said, health education strategies, social activities. That's all you have to put in that column.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. I think
But then the description of the activity should relate to that type of intervention.
Okay, so if I wrote, for example, using internet materials and also give information about health risks of eating tattoos, it could be in health communication strategy.
Or health education, it would fall under either of those.
And then I will describe it in the description boxes.
Yep.
Okay.
Shut the door.
Perfect.
Does anyone else have any other questions or any other comments? Anything else they'd like to add?
I don't think so.
I don't.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Great.
That was a good meeting, good discussion. I will just post this to for the relevance. And yeah, is there anyone who has like a burning passion to be there next week?
I will, just to get it over with.
Okay. Okay.
7:15. Does still work for everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. And send
Okay.
a link. Send a link, Josh.
Yeah, because
Yes,
adding
ma'am.
people to work.
I did finally open up my Gmail address, so
Oh,
Perfect.
I'll do my best.
Perfect.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you,
We'll
guys.
see you guys next week.
Thank you, guys. Goodbye, guys. Goodbye, sister.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
bye.
night.